All right, we're just going to go over some of the lights that are actually in Maya and utilizing Arnold. If we go to our create lights, we could just tear this off. These are the standard lights right here, and then the Arnold lights are under the Arnold tab. So these are generic, or not generic, but general lights. Now, if we're using the Arnold renderer, we can ignore ambient light and volume light because they don't work with it. If you're going to use an area light, it's best to use the Arnold area light. I know they look the same, or they have the same name. When you create this one, it'll say AI area. But let's just kind of go through these real quick. So the first one, let's do a directional light. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a directional light, and I'm going to scale it up. And a directional light is basically up, so we have one up there. How nice. That's right, I'd already created one. Isn't that gravy? So I have an ambient and a directional light in here already. That's just so I could see it in this scene. So the ambient light will not calculate when I render an Arnold. I'll just get rid of it for right now. Just affects the hardware rendering. And so I have a regular directional light, and if I pull up the Arnold renderer, we see that that's what we're getting. And I'm just going to stick the Arnold renderer side by side so we can actually see. So I'll close these up for now. So with the directional light, it's like a sunlight or a moonlight. It's light that's everywhere but going in one direction, and it can cast shadows. It's usually utilized for things like sunlight or moonlight. If it's primarily also if you're going to be doing something that has outside, some sort of outside environment, or an environment that has both inside and outside. The other one that you would also utilize is a sky dome, which we'll get into in a little while. So it doesn't look that appealing right now. I'm just going to pause my render and create a polygon plane. So I'm holding down spacebar, polygon primitives, plane, using the hotbox to get to things quickly. And I'm just going to take that, pull that down just a little bit. And the reason I'm doing this is because if you have an outside area, and you notice this is pitch black because there's nothing to bounce light off of it. So if I actually turn that on, now we're getting shadows, and we can see a little bit of light there. In the Arnold render view, we can turn this on, and this is color management. So this is your gamma and exposure, and this is a nice way of just boosting up some of the lighting in your scene without having to tinker so much with all the lights. It's a post effect. I'm moving both, and it's updating because inside of my settings, I have 3D manipulation turned on inside the Arnold render view. When I want to do stuff, I'll pause it so that I can actually move around freely and it's not chugging. Now with that light selected, actually let's go to a better view. And I want to show you what we got in our settings. So we have the color of the light. This is with all lights, so you could change the color here. It's something more extreme. That's way extreme. The intensity, which you have to be careful because it'll blow it out. But where we really want to jump into are the Arnold settings when we're using the Arnold renderer. And this is our way of being able to adjust, like if we go to exposure, and increasing it quickly. For indirect lighting, this would be lighting that's on the inside. So this is direct lighting. So if I tone that down, let's drop the exposure back to 1. But I say there should be more bounce light in here. That would be indirect lighting under visibility. So without putting another light source, which we'll do later, I can actually just increase the indirect lighting scale. And the areas that are not in direct view of the sunlight is actually being increased. As with everything, you don't want to go too high because then you're going to blow things out a bit. And it's good to use a reference of an image to actually get that. The only other thing we could actually do with this is we could also change the temperature. And this works really well for other lights other than the sun, but inside of here, so this is just like if you have buying light bulbs at the store. Whereas if I go to a lower value, it's going to start to go towards a warmer temperature. And as I go higher, you're going to see it start to go towards a blue. So this is how you would start to tweak it out, like if you want it to be more of a nighttime scene, right? And let's say we're going to light this as a nighttime scene. You don't want it pitch black. We'll go in there and we can lower the exposure. Or the intensity, or both. The difference is usually the directional light's a little weird because it's everywhere and it's everything, just going in one direction. So it tends to be a little more intense than some of the other ones. But if we're just trying to get a nice nighttime, this might look pretty good for a nighttime, and we can just adjust that as it stands and make that our nighttime light. So the next light, after we've tweaked this out the way we want it, and this is also, we can adjust just the diffuse if we wanted to, which will be basically you could think of it as your direct light. It's really everywhere, but it's primarily where you'll see it, and where it would be affected in specularity. And that's it for the directional light. Let's go on to the next one.